and be able to make profit in excess of 45%. Exchange, in fact, interest rates 45% at some banks. If you go to some of the microfinance, if you are not careful, you get interest almost at 100%. The speaker, somebody says that you have to say that interest rate and lending rate are the same. The truth is that Ghana's bonds have been downgraded to junk. Our credit worthiness has been downgraded completely to junk or useless. My colleague, the Honorable Adongo, once said that he's more credit worthy than the government of Ghana. And he's right. He can attract loans at a cheaper rate than the government of Ghana. GDP growth outlook is at its lowest. That is a fact. Almost SOEs are bankrupt or insolvent, including the giant Ghana Cocoa Board. They pay their debt. Cocoa Board, the giant Ghana Cocoa Board, the almighty Cocoa Board is on its knees under this administration. Now we are seeing Ghana Beyond Aid being transitioned into Ghana of begging. Ghana Beyond Aid is now Ghana of begging. Of begging, yeah, you're patch out. Mr. Speaker, apart from Basins, our president has begged the Finance Minister of Germany. In fact, he's begging the Finance Minister of Germany for Ghana, to beg China. So he's begging someone to beg for us. Ghana Beyond Aid. Mr. Speaker, the entire economic indicators have deteriorated. The entire macroeconomic indicators have deteriorated. Mr. Speaker, our president said it is his hope that Ghana will get, in fact, he did not even say it is his hope. He said on authority that Ghana will be getting the IMF board approval by end of this month. Mr. Speaker, I don't know who is briefing His Excellency the President. Someone doing a terrible job. Ghana will not be able to get an IMF board at the end of this month. Because, Mr. Speaker, even the board documents are not prepared. There are things we need to meet, and this is what we call financing assurances. We need to get China to give Ghana financing assurance. One, they are ready to accept a haircut. China has not agreed. And the kind of haircut is expected to take is that of Honorable Okujeto Abrapa's haircut. Mr. Speaker, aside that, we are also expected as a country. We are expected as a country to get financial assurance from Paris clubs, including Germany. Now, Germans are telling us that go at the size of your government, reduce government expenditure before they accept restructuring. Yet, you don't care. And yet, you are saying that you will go on Ethiopia. Mr. Speaker, that is why we are saying that we will not approve new ministers. It is nationalistic. It is not in the interest of one person. We do not hate anyone here. Mr. Speaker, we are colleagues. But the truth is we are doing this for the people of Ghana. And it must be done for the country, because if the president is not ready to act, someone must act for him. And we will act for them. Because, Mr. Speaker, until that is done, Germany, who is a major partner of Paris clubs, may not give us the financing assurance for the purposes. For the purposes of IMF will go to the board. Mr. Speaker, that is a major concern. That is a major concern. We also need to engage the Eurobond holders to get financing assurances from them. Financing assurances from the Eurobond holders. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, we have only informed the Eurobond holders that Ghana is going to restructure our debt, and that we are not in a position to repay our debt. So as we speak, we have defaulted in the repayment of our debt. Ghana is not able to pay. Mr. Speaker, this is worse than Yemchia. This is Yemchia because we don't have the money to pay. This is the worst form of our champion's government. So we have seen a reincarnation of our champion's government under President Akufo-Addo, where we say that Yemchia, we don't have the money. Mr. Speaker, our loans, the local banks here, all the loans that we approved as a house, we are not able to service those debts. Yet, the president is only interested in appointing ministers, increasing the size of government, and living large. Someone must tell him in the face. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, we think that somebody must tell the president in the face that the time has come for him to act. And he must act now to save our livelihood. Mr. Speaker, to conclude, Mr. Speaker, I beg to say, Mr. Speaker, the former Chief Justice, Justice Sophia Kufu, once said, "This is not Medofo Adada. This is Medofo Edimewu." Indeed, MPP Ediganewu. Mr. Speaker, the truth is that this government inherited so much goodwill. The people of Ghana gave them the benefit of the doubt. We have contributed so much resources for this administration. NDC managed with 1 oil field. They've had 3 oil fields. Accumulated so much revenue. Borrowed so much. Had 820 billion Ghana cedis. Had 130 billion US dollars. Yet, Mr. Speaker, they can only show us toilets. Mr. Speaker, it's so difficult for one to comprehend the amount of resources this administration has had so far, yet they are struggling to point to what they've been able to do. The mess is just too much. The mess is just too much. And someone must inform the president that his leg won't be good. Mr. Speaker, MPP as the only political party that our economy from a healthy economy and landed it in the mortuary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Minority leader, you spoke for 15 minutes. 15 minutes. So I will invite Honorable Majority Leader Desompahene to also conclude the debate.
Speaker, thank you very much for this opportunity. And let me congratulate my colleague, the Minority Leader, for attempting, for critiquing the message on the state of the nation. And I must commend him because he really went into figures, even though I disagree with him in his own analysis. The Speaker, I disagree with him because he set his own examination questions, provided his own marking scheme, and then went on to mark down the president's statement. Mr. Speaker, where in the President's statement did he tell Ghanaians that he spent all the revenue on the construction of roads? Nowhere. Nowhere did the President say that. Number two, Mr. Speaker, the minority leader, who is a finance person, knows that, yes, if you contract loans and you don't draw down, you will not count it as part of your debt stock. He knows that. Mr. Speaker, he knows that. Why he opted to go the path that he elected to do, it's really mind-boggling. Forgive him for his trespasses. Mr. Speaker, then the minority leader should know that given the current circumstances, in particular relating to inflation and the exchange rate depreciation, assuming that this government did not borrow, it is post-2016, the debt to GDP, because the exchange rate depreciation was still brought up. The debt to GDP was still brought up. Mr. Speaker, he's a man of finance, and I thought this is really that you should appreciate. Mr. Speaker, so you see, he's gotten it totally wrong. That's why I'm forgiving his trespasses. Mr. Speaker, the Bank of Ghana, he says, exists just to print money. I'll get into that. Speaker, once again, let me thank you for the opportunity offered to conclude a debate on the motion that this House thanks His Excellency the President for the message on the state of the nation which he delivered to Parliament on Wednesday, the 8th of March 2023. The motion to thank the President was ably moved by the Honourable for Efutu, who doubles up as the Deputy Majority Leader, the Honourable Alexander Kwamina Afenyo-Markin. Speaker, as I reminded in March last year, the overall architecture of national development is established by the directive principles of state policy. And it provides the broad vision, the overarching agenda for national development. And these are set out in the political objectives in Article 35 of the 1992 Republican Constitution, economic objectives in Article 36, social objectives in Article 37, education objectives in 38, cultural objectives in Article 39, international relations Article 40, and duties of a responsible citizen in Article 41. The President started off in acknowledging the presence of distinguished personalities, among whom this time were the former presidents of the Republic, Presidents John Ajifo and John Dramani Mahama. In 2021, after the 2020 elections, Mr. Mahama did not respond to the invitation to attend the presentation on the message on the state of the nation. The former president was again absent at last year's event, and I lamented his absence and stated unequivocally that it was not a good account of an immediate past president. I insisted that it was not good for the unity of the country, regardless of our political differences. It's the reason why the sheer presence of former President Mahama must be commended this time. The spirit of togetherness as a people, as a country, must be predominant wherever and in whatever we do. Thus far, President Mahama has attended one of the 6 events involving the delivery of the message on the nation. By any reckoning, it's not a good mark, but one can only hope that at least on account of the hilarious welcome accorded him by the minority group this time, the former president would be inspired to attend subsequent events in his capacity as a former of this country. The Speaker, the date for the presentation of the message coincided with the day set aside nationally to honor women, and the President sees the occasion to celebrate women everywhere, in particular Ghanaian women, for their contributions in the realization of the dreams and aspirations of humankind. Appreciating the presence of women leaders at both local and national fronts, the President applauded them for their contributions to advancing the rights, enhancing equality, and improving the conditions and quality of life of the citizenry, women and men. The Speaker, we must also thank the President for his recognition, except to say that, recognizably, there are many areas that as a country we haven't done well enough. For the umpteenth time, it's important to remind ourselves that since January 1993, this House has failed to live up to its responsibility imposed by Article 22, that is, enacting and legislating to regulate the property rights of spouses. Most spouses who suffer deprivation are women. Mr. Speaker, Article 26 Clause 2 provides, and I quote, all customary practices which dehumanize or are injurious to the physical and mental well-being of the person are prohibited, unquote. There are still witches' camps in this country. That is the state of our nation today. What are we doing about it as a legislative assembly of the country? Female genital mutilation is still being practiced. That is dehumanizing. It is injurious to the physical and mental health of young females. And that's the state of our nation. What is government and parliament doing about them? The Speaker, I just returned from the Interparliamentary Conference that held in Manama, Bahrain. The conference reiterated the call on all parliaments in the world to have at least 30% women membership latest by 2025. Global average of women in parliament is 26%. In Ghana's parliament, women representation is only 14%. That is the state of our nation. What should be the way forward for this country? The Speaker, it has been suggested by some people that to the extent that the 1992 Republican Constitution prescribes the first past post system, so to that same extent shall women representation in electoral positions, in elected positions, remain unequal. Do we amend the Constitution to ensure this? Let us ponder and determine, because for now, that indeed is the state of the nation. The Speaker, the President, in his preambular pages, eulogized the country's democratic credentials, and whilst acknowledging that the journey has been challenging, nonetheless entreated Ghanaians to remain resolute in our pursuits, in full recognition that colonial rule, dictatorship, one-party rule, and military rule, regardless of however they christen themselves, yield little dividends to the root. As a former member of Parliament himself, the President identified with Parliament's celebration of 30 years of uninterrupted constitutional governance and acknowledged with considerable appreciation the role Parliament plays in upholding constitutionalism, and how come Parliament, as a bulwark of democracy, is the arm of government that coup makers prescribe, leaving the judiciary and the executive to continue to function in one form or the other. The President emphasized his wish, therefore, for cooperation and unity of purpose among the parties and factions in Parliament, and concluded on the need, and I'm quoting him, in more bipartisan maturity to meet the challenges confronting us this time. Speaker, that's 2 paragraph 4 of the President's message. The Speaker, as I have indicated earlier, Article 67, which compels the President to deliver the message of the State of the Nation, does not directly to the content of the message. However, the state of the country is the situation or set of circumstances that pertains to the country now. And the present message is an account of the pertaining condition of the country as he finds it. The President, at the very outset admitted that any honest assessment of our country's situation would necessarily involve, and I'm quoting him, the gravity of the economic situation of our country and how we can quickly stabilize the economy and work our way back to the period of rapid economic growth, unquote. Continuing, the president did not mince words when he stated, again I quote, "Our currency has been buffeted, our inflation rate has been very high, and for the first time in our lives, debt exchanges have been language of everyday conversation," unquote. The Speaker, that is brutal frankness. A lot of critics have jumped onto the bandwagon to blame the current administration for where we are today, and it's the reason why the president stated it would necessarily have to include what state it was in yesterday, the state it is in today, and what it will be in tomorrow, based on reasonable grounds of expectations. The Speaker, the president took us down memory lane when he related to his own in 2020. To be precise, February 20th, 2020. The evidence of Akufo-Addo's performance is in the standard economic indicators. The Speaker, my colleague, has related to it. GDP growth averaging 7% between 2017 and 2019, gradually reducing inflation such that it hit its lowest level, 7.8% in January 2020, and that is since the rebirth of constitutional democracy. Having a fiscal deficit below 5% of GDP for 3 consecutive years, something NDC could never achieve. That was the first ever in 40 years. Having a surplus balance of trade for 3 years running, that was the first in over 20 years. My colleague, the minority leader, was the deputy finance minister. Let him relate to these facts. Were they able to achieve that? 1/4 of that performance. Mr. Speaker, talk is. Mr. Speaker, interest rates were climbing now. The country's current account deficits were manifestly shrinking, and the depreciation of Ghana cedi was at its lowest for any first-time administration since January 1993. The Speaker, Ghana's 7% average annual GDP growth places it among the league of 4 fastest-growing economies in the world in 3 years. The Speaker, the international investor community recognized this fact, and that is how come Ghana became the largest recipient of foreign direct investment in West Africa sub-region. All these indicators have registered strongly until February 20. Then from nowhere, COVID-19 struck and pulled the rug from under our feet. The Speaker, COVID-19 caused lockdowns, as you all do know, in the foremost human settlements in the country. We were forced to close our airports and land borders. Schools, markets, factories shut down. Tourism and hospitality industry crumbled. The very vulnerable to be served hot meals and later essential food items to prepare and feed themselves. Personal protection equipment had to be procured and supplied to frontline health workers, all in a bid to save lives and livelihoods. Mr. Speaker, press conferences were organized by the minority group in Parliament, led by the minority spokesperson. The pivotal matter was that government was not providing enough equipment, PPEs, for this country. We needed money to do that. You were critiquing government, that government was not spending enough. The many press conferences that we organized in this house. Is it not ironical that today, the same people who insisted yesterday that government was not spending enough are now the same people who have turned around to loudly proclaim that government engaged in reckless expenditure, especially in respect of COVID-19 expenditure? Where does truth stand in these matters? The Speaker, to go back and debate on the state of the economy, it goes without saying that the next elections will not only be fought on the state of the economy today, no thanks to the rampaging effect of the coronavirus and also the Russian-Ukrainian imbroglio, but also on the management of the economy. In this, the track record of the two parties is crystal clear. The Speaker, to all who have eyes to see and ears to hear, except persons who stock in trade is propaganda. The Speaker, President Mahama was the one who introduced a new phraseology in Ghana's parliament: evidence-based facts. What are the facts on the economy yesterday, and what are the facts on the economy today? The Speaker, it is important to restate, and when the minority leader was relating to economic indicators, the Speaker, he refused, just to satisfy himself, to compare the track record of the NDC when he was the Deputy Finance Minister to the current situation. I will refresh your mind. Mr. Speaker, it is important to restate that the Ghanaian economy grew steadily from 3% in 2000 through 4.2 under President Kufuor in 2000, 4.5 in 2002, 5.2% in 2003, 5.6 in 2004, 5.9 in 2005, 6.4 in 2006, 6.3 in 2007, and 8.4% in 2008, later rising to 9.1% after the economy was rebased. This is steady growth, growing steadily and calculatedly. Mr. Speaker, the economy expanded profoundly under President Kufuor from $5.1 billion in 2000 to $28 billion in 2008, and that was over 450% increase. Amidst the global and financial crisis of 2007 and 2008, Ghana was transformed from a highly indebted poor country, HIPIC, to a lower middle income economy on the frontier of emerging market status. Now enter the Mills-Mahama regime, and declining growth rate set in. There was no COVID. There was no Russia-Ukraine conflict. Mr. Speaker, from the 9.1 growth in 2008, the GDP swung down to 8%. That's under your watch. 4.8% in 2009, then 7.9 in 20, 14.0 in 2011. The Speaker, one must be quick to add that the 2011 happened only because it was the first time petroleum money got factored into our accounts. First time. And when we discovered petroleum and brought it here, you said it was palm kernel. You said it was palm kernel oil. And yet, you were the first beneficiaries. Mr. Speaker, for 2012, GDP rate climbed down to 9.3 and spiraled downwards to 7.3 in 2013. Mr. Speaker, for 2014, GDP growth rate nosedived. 2014, minority leader, I beg you listen, under your watch, 2014, GDP growth rate nosedived to 2.9%. In 2015, it plunged further to 2.2%. There was no conflict. There was no Russian conflict. Mr. Speaker, it was the GDP growth rate, and to that time, in 37 years, the worst GDP performance. Mr. Speaker, and then for 2016, the economy grew by 3.4%. Mr. Speaker, that was the worst performance aside the preceding year in 22 years under your watch. You are the Deputy Finance Minister. Mr. Speaker, what this means is that under President Mahama, GDP growth rate averaged only 3.9% for the entire 4-year period. 3.9%. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, the ECOWAS regional economy grew at 8%. Ghana grew at 8.1%. Mr. Speaker, Ghana grew at 8%. It was oil. Didn't you have oil at the time? Please don't mislead and deceive Ghanaians. Mr. Speaker, that was up from the shambolic 3% that we bequeathed to the succeeding government. That was phenomenal. Mr. Speaker, in 2018, The ECOWAS average GDP was 3.5%. The economy grew at 6.2%. That performance was surpassed only by one country in the entire sub-region, and that was Gambia, which grew at 6.9%. In terms of economic growth, 1983 was the annus horribilis for Ghana, characterized by intense drought and bushfires and the deportation of over 500,000 Ghanaians from Nigeria back to Ghana. The country ground to ground zero in GDP terms. That is why the 1984 growth rate was more than percent of what was witnessed in 1983. Aside that, there has never been any succeeding where the GDP has grown by more than 100%. And yet that was what was achieved under in 2017. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, the Kufuor administration outperformed JDMs in 2016 by 182.6%. Never happened under your watch. Mr. Speaker, in 2019, the ECOWAS average GDP was 3.5%. Yet under Kufuor, the economy grew by 6.5%. That means that in the first 3 years of Kufuor before COVID struck, GDP growth has averaged 7.0%, as compared to your shambolic performance of 3.9% for 4 years. Mr. Speaker, so the matter of the economy, you people don't come anywhere close. You people don't come anywhere close. Mr. Speaker, in the COVID-19 year of 2020, the ECOWAS average GDP was negative 0.6%. Ghana did positive 0.5%, which was the third highest the West African Monetary Zone area, after Liberia had made negative 2.5%, Nigeria negative 1.8%, and Sierra Leone negative 2.0%. The Speaker, in 2021, ECOWAS average GDP was 4.4. Indeed, in the WAMS countries, embracing Ghana, Guinea, Liberia, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone, average was 3.6. Ghana's GDP was 5.4%, even in the COVID year, which was still much better than your performance for the entire 4 years. Entire 4 years. Mr. Speaker, statistics don't lie. And those are the indicators for measuring your efficiency, your competence of us. Mr. Speaker, the highest in the WAMS in 2022, Ghana's GDP registered a provisional growth of 3.6. That's 2022. That is the worst. That is the worst GDP growth under Kufuor. But even the 3.6 is much better than the 3.4 that would be given to the Kufuor regime in 2016. You, management, you don't come anywhere close. Don't lead yourself and mislead the people of this country. Mr. Speaker, so the 3.6 GDP growth, that's even provisional, 2022, is still much better than the average GDP growth of 2.8. 2.8 under the NDC John Mahama in your last 3 years. Your last 3 years, the average growth was 2.8%. Yes, in our worst years, ours is still much better than your own track record. Mr. Speaker, in order to strengthen the productive capacity of the economy, macroeconomic fundamentals must be strengthened. I agree with my colleague. That precisely is what the current government has set out to do. Nigeria, undoubtedly, is the strongest economy, not only in the but indeed in the entirety of Africa. Mr. Speaker, it's important for us to compare our performance to that of Nigeria, not with dwarfs, but that of Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, in 2018, ECOWAS average GDP was 3.6. Ghana registered 6.2. Nigeria registered 1.9. In 2019, the ECOWAS average was 3.5. Ghana registered 6.5. Nigeria registered 2.2. The ECOWAS average was negative 0.6. Ghana registered plus 0.5%. Nigeria's GDP growth was negative 1%. In 2021, ECOWAS averaged 4.4, Ghana registered 5.4, Nigeria 6. Mr. Speaker, in 2022, ECOWAS 3.7, Ghana's provision is 3.6, Nigeria is 2.4. Mr. Speaker, compare your own performance with Nigeria. Over the 8 years that we were in government, there were only 3 occasions that you surpassed Nigeria. Only 3 occasions. The entire 8 years. Mr. Speaker, when we talk about economic management, you shouldn't have any mouth to even talk. Mr. Speaker, in the ECOWAS averaging annual average inflation, and we are talking about inflation, the Speaker increased to 10% in 2020 from 8.2 in 2019, and again 12.7% in 2021 due to increased food and fuel prices, high rate pass-through, as well as supply chain disruptions. In 2022, the average inflation of ECOWAS is estimated at 16.6, from the projection of 9.9 at the beginning of 2022. Mr. Speaker, this reflects the supply side constraints and shortages of foodstuffs and other essential commodities, arising mainly from the closure of national borders and other measures imposed to contain the spread of the coronavirus through importation. Inflationary pressures persisted in the ECOWAS region in 2022, mostly due to rising commodity prices, mainly energy and fuel, with implications for transport costs, food prices, exchange rates through effect, as well as continuous supply chain disruptions. Mr. Speaker, indeed, of the 5 Anglophone countries in the sub-region, apart from Ghana, only the Gambia's inflation rate has often been below the regional average between 2018 and 2022. For Ghana, since 2017, it is only in 2022 that average annual inflation has significantly soared over the ECOWAS average. That performance is far better than the NDC under both Mills and Mahama, where for 5 out of 8 years, Ghana's inflation was above the ECOWAS average. Your average. Mr. Speaker, so I'm saying that for now, it is only 2022 that we have overshot it. As far as you are concerned, for 5 out of 8 years, we are always above the ECOWAS average. This is the first time under Kufuor that has gone above. But that is not to say that it is justifiable. It's not to say that it's justifiable. But when you speak to facts, let the facts lead you. Mr. Speaker, so ECOWAS average, consumer price inflation, 2018, 9.3%, 2018, Ghana scored 9.8%. 2019, 8.1, Ghana scored 7.1, 2020, 10.2, 9.9, 2021, 12.7, we did 10.0. And for 2022, Mr. Speaker, as at the end of June, it was 27.2. We are yet to do the end on year inflation calculation. Yes, it escalated at a point to over 50%. Certainly not the best. But when it is calculated, certainly the average is going to be somewhere in the region of about 5%, which will still be above the West African average of 16.6. And that indeed we must work towards it. But Mr. Speaker, Nigeria did 18.9%, Sierra Leone did 25.9%. Mr. Speaker, so Ghana is not even alone in the league. It is not to say that we must justify it. Mr. Speaker, the COVID-19 pandemic also undermined the progress made in previous years in the ECOWAS sub-region regarding performance under the macroeconomic criteria. Due to the impact of COVID-19 on lives and livelihoods, the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government suspended the convergence criteria for 2020 and 2021. At the end of 2020, no ECOWAS member country had met any of the 6 convergence criteria. Mr. Speaker, the convergence criteria has been reintroduced in 2022, and Ghana, as of the first half of the year 2020, had attained 3 of 6 criteria. One must add that by the close of the year, we have slipped on 1 more of the criteria, and indeed we have attained only 2 out of the 6 criteria. Mr. Speaker, That has been the most horrible performance. That is attaining 2 out of 6 of the rationalized convergence criteria. 2 out of 6. It is the most horrible performance under Kufuor. How does it compare under the NDC? No COVID, no Russia. The Speaker, when there were 10 points set criteria, your best performance was 3 out of 10. Your best performance was 3 out of the 10 convergence criteria, primary and secondary. And when we rationalized it, you attained your best was 2 out of 6. In many instances, Mr. Speaker, you only attain 1 out of 6. And you have math to critique what is going on. So, for the NDC, talk is cheap. When they come to implementation, they are found terribly wanting. Mr. Speaker, that's our situation. We have attained 2 out of 6 convergence criteria. I've said that it's not the best. Still, it's better than your performance. It's better than your performance. The Honorable Rekes was a deputy minister. The minority leader was a deputy minister. They know I'm speaking to the truth. Shambolic performance. No COVID. No Russian-Ukraine war. Mr. Speaker, now it's important to talk to sectoral goals. The Speaker, in 2014, under the NDC, grew at 0.9%. In 2015, it registered only 2.1%. And 2016, it grew at 2.7%. In 2017, and I hope my colleague, the Honorable Eric, is listening. In 2017, agriculture grew at 6.2%. In 2018, it grew at 4.9%, and for 2019, it registered 4.7%. In 2020, agriculture grew at 7.3%. 2021, it grew at 8.4%. The Speaker, and in 2022, the projection is 4.9%. That is using the half-year indicators. Mr. Speaker, for the last 3 years of the NG, agricultural growth averaged abysmally 2%. Whereas for the MPP's tenure over the past 3 years, even shattered by COVID, agricultural growth, if we include the provisional figure of 2022 of 4.9, takes it to an average growth rate of 6.7%. Under your watch, it was 2%. So, when we're talking about the macro indicators, on what leg do you people stand? On what leg do you people stand? Mr. Speaker, that indeed is the state of it. The average growth for cocoa subsector, Eric, please listen. The average rate of growth for the cocoa subsector under President Mahama for the last 3 years was 3.5%. The last 3 years, average growth, cocoa subsector, negative 3.5%. Under MPP, the average growth rate for the past 3 years, even with COVID, is 4.5%, inclusive of the first year performance of 1.6%, which does not include the major cocoa season, as we do know. Mr. Speaker, and I refer you to paragraph 78, table 7, page 23 of the 2023 budget. Go and look at that. You have math. You people, you have math to talk. The average growth rate in fisheries for the past 3 years under President Mahama was negative 3.6%. Your last 3 years. Under Kufuor, over the past 3 years, the average is positive 9.7%. That is the state of the nation. Mr. Speaker, under Kufuor, livestock has grown 5.5%. You did well in livestock your last 3 years, but it was 5.2%, average between 5.7% and 5.5%. And that is evidence-based. You brought some women here, having given them 3 pagelets. You have no shame telling the nation you grew livestock average 5.2%. It has done 5.5%. Industry. Under President Mahama, industry grew at 1.1% in 2014, 1.2% in 2015, 4.3% in 2016. The Speaker, no COVID, no Russian invasion of Ukraine. The Speaker, under Akufo-Addo, so the average rate of growth for industry was 2.2%. The last 3 years, 2.2%. The Speaker, under Akufo-Addo in 2017, industry grew at 15.6%. 2017. And 2018, it grew at 10.5%, 2019, 6.4%. The average industrial growth for the first 3 years under Akufo-Addo was 10.8%, compared to 2.2% under Akufo-Addo. So, Speaker, this indeed is the state of the nation. Everywhere in the world, industry suffered the brunt of COVID-19. Ghana was not spared. Industry crumbled in 2020 when we grew at negative 2.5%. In 2021, negative 0.8%. But industry has started rebounding in 2022 with the first half year growth in 2022 registering 1.8%. The Speaker, manufacturing is bouncing back, registering 4.8% growth in the last against Mahama's 4.3% in the last 3 years, when there was no COVID, when there was no Russian invasion. This is the state of the nation today. The Speaker, as the President stated, thanks to the One Factory program, in 4 years, 106 factories are in operation. Additional 108 factories are under construction and at various stages of completion. To rehash what the President said, and I'm quoting him, this is the largest expansion of the industrial sector since independence. Unquote. The Speaker, the President indicated that 518 million Ghana's of grants and loans have been provided to micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises through NBSSI, now Ghana Enterprises Agency, in which over 300,000 enterprises benefited. The Speaker, on energy, the President in his message spoke about energy sufficiency in the country when he said last year, and I'm quoting what he said last year, "We have kept the lights on in spite of the worldwide upheaval in the energy sector and in spite of the huge legacy debts that we inherited," unquote. The President stressed, and again I'm quoting, the national electricity asset rate has increased from 85.17% in 2020 to 87.3% as of January 2022. By the close of December last year, access to electricity, the Speaker, is close to 88.9%. 88.9%. Mr. Speaker, we are on course to achieve universal access to electricity by the end of the President's term, as he assured. Mr. Speaker, as I said last year, I must re-emphasize that much too high a percentage of our electricity generation is dependent on fossil fuel. The Speaker, the world is looking outside fossil fuels, and we must strategically align. Continuing, let me just quote what I said last year. And last year I said, Mr. Speaker, the United Arab Emirates, a major oil producer, is a major oil producer. Yet today the focus is on nuclear energy generation. And that's why on March 24, 2022, Unit 2 of the Baraka nuclear energy plant in Abu Dhabi was commissioned to commence commercial operation to add 1,400 megawatts of clean electricity to their national grid. Earlier commissioned of the which is producing again another 1,400 megawatts. That's why the operator, Emirates Nuclear Energy Corporation, ENEC, said that the plant thus far is supplying 2,800 megawatts of electricity to their national grid. Baraka has 4 APR 1,400 megawatts units. It's intended to roll out Unit 3 and 4 by 2025 to generate about 85% of Abu Dhabi's clean energy and about 25% of United Arab Emirates' total electricity needs. In other words, 5,600 megawatts of nuclear energy shall be on stream in this, which produces such quantum fossil fuel, cuts over 22.5 million tons of emissions annually. Mr. Speaker, as a nation, we must look at nuclear energy generation. It is clean and is close to the sustainability index. Mr. Speaker, how to deal with the roads issue that my colleague raised. The President insisted that monies contracted had not been recklessly spent and was emphatic that he had taken loans to develop the country and improving conditions of the citizens. He said that he has built roads and bridges and constructed schools to develop human capital. On roads, the President insisted, and I'm quoting him, that this government has built more roads than any government in the history of the Fourth Republic. Last year, the President made a similar claim, and some people expressed strong disagreement. Unfortunately, not from any informed perspective. To put the matter to bed, the President submitted an annex to his delivered statement which captured the numbers, the descriptions, the locations, lengths and quality of roads and bridges that have been done. The truth of the matter is that President Kufuor met a total national road network of 39,000 kilometers. That was from independence up to President Kufuor's time. At the time of President Kufuor's exit, the road network had increased from 39,000 to 69,000 kilometers. Most of the additional 30,000 kilometers, though, comprised feeder roads. Entered President Milton Mahama. At the time, the road network was assumed to have increased to 73,000, an addition of 4,000 kilometers. The Speaker, I have quoted these figures, which were given us by the then Minister for Roads and Highways, my friend and colleague, Honorable Husseini Inusa. I've quoted this figure on many forms. However, after verification in 2018, it came to the fore that the figure quoted in 2016 by the Minister, Mr. Husseini, was, and thanks to election year endeavors and the completion of other uncompleted projects, the total distance of roads under President Mahama and Mills was rather up to 78,000 kilometers, which meant that the two administrations had expanded the road network by 1,000 kilometers. From 78,000, the Kufuor administration has massively expanded the frontiers of road construction and taken it to 103,000 kilometers to today. 25,000 kilometers of roads added. And these are in the form of highways, urban roads, feeder roads, and even town roads. Mr. Speaker, these have been added, and it's only halfway into the second chapter of Akufo-Addo's government. That indeed is the state of the nation today. Mr. Speaker, the people of Swami, Lenshia, Tafo, Bantama, and the entire Kumasi metropolitan area, as well as the middle and northern sectors of the country, were elated when they heard the President relate to a $750 million Afri-Exim Bank facility which has been secured and which will make it possible to construct additional roads and interchanges, including the long-awaited interchange, 4-tier Swami interchange. We can only hold our breath for the much delayed actual construction of the $47 million ancillary roads to engender the commencement of the interchange. The Speaker, yesterday, I entered the course of the debate. I had my colleague, the Honorable Governors Kwame Abuja, the Minority Chief Whip, and the Ranking Member on Roads and Transport, speak the need to maintain our roads. I cannot agree more with him. There's a lot to be desired about keeping that are constructed in good shape. The Speaker, however, everyone, all of us in this House, MPs, we need to be constructed, not least because it will improve the quality of lives in our constituencies, but as well adds a fillip to our chances of being retained by our constituents. The Speaker, last year, the ranking mounted a spirited rejection of the claim by the President with respect to roads constructed. This time around, he has had a road to Damascus experience. The Speaker is not casting doubts on the claim, but we need to maintain what works that have been done. As I said, I agree entirely with the Minority Chief Whip. The Speaker, Last year, the president, whilst conceding that the nation was going through some difficult times, asserted, and I'm quoting him, that government intends to continue and grow the economy to bring prosperity. It will only happen if we continue to invest in the future, he added. The Speaker, in this year's message, the President stated candidly that the free senior high school and free TVET are the best vehicles we have devised to take us to the realization of our goal of an educated and skilled force. Unquote. Continuing, the President said, and I'm quoting once again, the TVET institutions are being equipped to enable them to train increased numbers of children that we want to be attracted to the sector to meet modern needs of our economy. Unquote. Accordingly, Speaker, the President said he was going to commission 34 refurbished NVTIs and some other technical colleges that were going to be constructed in the 5 new regions, including Western North, Savannah, Northeast, Ahafo, and Oti regions. These bold declarations were made, the Speaker, they were very congruent with the imperatives of Article 36(2)(d) of the Constitution of our Republic. In this regard, it was good to hear the President reveal this time around, and I'm quoting him again, since the realignment and introduction of free TVET, enrollment in TVET schools has increased from 13,000 in the year 2021 to 47,000 in the year 2. Mr. Speaker, also staggering statistics as of this year, nearly 2 million young people have benefited from the free SHS policy. And when the doomsday prophets and prophetesses were proclaiming that the free senior high school was going to lead to a lowering of standards, the result being churned out by the senior high school students strongly suggests that the students are doing much better than the students under the Old Testament. We are indeed enhancing the quality of human capital. Mr. Speaker, that again is the state of our nation. Mr. Speaker, on the country's engagement with the IMF, the President, apart from what briefing the Finance Minister had earlier come to deliver to this House, related to the status of the negotiations and what conclusions would offer the country, that is, the restoration of macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability whilst protecting the vulnerable in the Ghanaian society. The Speaker, much hot air has been generated as to how we got here as a country. The government's critics have insisted that the circumstance of the country is attributable to reckless borrowing and profligate expenditure. Government claims to explain that it has borrowed to provide the necessary infrastructure, including roads, not only roads, but including roads, health facilities, potable water, electricity, educational facilities, drains, cleaning up the banking sector, resourcing the various arms of government, including Parliament and the judiciary, as well as other constitutional to uphold and protect democratic governance. Mr. Speaker, in the same manner, government is maintaining the unity and stability of our dear nation by making relevant allocations to the armed forces, the police service in particular, to preserve the internal integrity and protect the territorial integrity of the Republic. All these were coalescing seamlessly and harmoniously to guide us to achieve a per capita income of $4,500 by 2030, from the current level of $500. Mr. Speaker, when we inherited under the NDC, what was it? It was less than 2,000. What we had, the per capita index of this country when we inherited was around $1,650. Today, under Akufo-Addo, it's $2,500. And you have the boldness to say that this really is bad governance. Mr. Speaker, may God forgive the trespasses. Mr. Speaker, we may spend hours, days, weeks, and months each engaged in self-righteous and self-serving finger pointing. The truth shall stand. And the truth is that all of us have been negligent in oversight responsibilities. Every government will strive to leave an indelible mark as far as development is concerned. That is what the electorate shall remember the government for. However, we should equally be concerned about the means to that end. Every government has been borrowing to add to the stock of debt. Parliament should be the body to ensure that we spend within our means. Parliament does not have a committee on the economy to do this analysis for us. The NDPC, which exists to create a long-term development plan, is not properly situated. Until we put the proper mechanisms in place, what is happening today will repeat itself. Mr. Speaker, we need fiscal discipline. The otherwise central role of the NDPC, which remains unfulfilled, is one of the why many are calling for a holistic review of the Constitution. The debt stock of the NDC, calculated year on year in dollar terms, was about $47 billion. Year on year, what the MPP has added is in the region of $32 billion. And I was really concerned about the voodoo financials that the minority leader was engaged in. Mr. Speaker, in city terms, the debt stock appears insurmountable, but we must work our way out together. And that's why we have to go back to the IMF. Parliament is required to partner government to hinder negotiations with the IMF after achieving the staff level agreement in December 2022 by passing the remaining financial bills of Income Tax Amendment Bill, the Excise Duty Amendment Bill, Excise Stamp Amendment Bill, and the Growth and Sustainability Levy Bill. Mr. Speaker, the passage of these bills would sanctify the country before the IMF and at the same time rev up our domestic revenue mobilization efforts. As for the domestic debt exchange program, Mr. Speaker, much discourse has been generated already, and I will not overflow the issue, except to reiterate the fact that it is a call to help to all patriots. Let us hold together to rescue the nation. It's a clarion call on patriots to voluntarily assist in the revitalization of the economy. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, let me say that no country engages the IMF if the country is not afflicted by economic challenges. Have we been reckless in borrowing and expenditure? The records do not lead to that conclusion. Could we have done better? Upon hindsight, it may that we over-exaggerated our strength in a few areas. Notwithstanding, there is empirical evidence to show that it has not underperformed. In sharp contrast with its immediate predecessor administration, the government has done enormously well, notwithstanding the current hiccups. It is important to state the following facts. The rate of economic growth has more than doubled from the 2.8% growth that President Mahama bequeathed to his successor administration. Speaker, in spite of the COVID-19 and Russia-Ukraine conflict, the country remains self-sufficient in staples of cassava and plantain. We not import them from Cote d'Ivoire. We have not imported these for human consumption over the past 3 years. The Speaker, rather, neighboring countries have been buying these items, especially maize, yam, and rice, from Ghana. We have cleaned up the banking sector and saved depositors from the movement of some deposit-taking houses, which really should not have been given license to operate in the first place. NAPCO gave employment to over 100,000 graduates who otherwise would not have had any employment at all. Over 1.5 million people have been offered employment, most of them in the informal sector. Over 350,000 people were employed to offer services in the public space. Teacher training allowances have been restored. 8 nurses training allowances have been restored. Free senior high school has been introduced and is still working. The Speaker, 307 fit-for-purpose ambulances have been procured and distributed to all constituencies nationwide. The realignment and introduction of TBET has resulted in the increase of enrollment in TVET schools from 13,000 in 2021 to 47,000 in 2022. 6 new regions and additional districts have been created to ensure even and balanced development in every part of Ghana and to redress any imbalance between the rural and urban areas as provided under Article 36(2)(d). Drones have been introduced to enhance the delivery of healthcare. About 340 out of the 560 small dams have either been completed or are very near completion. 3 development authorities have been established to provide additional fillip to government's development agenda in the various districts. The construction of 10 fish landing sites at the coast in such towns as Keta, Tashi, Winneba, Mumford, Azim are at the stages of completion. The construction of the Tamale Airport Phase 2 is progressing steadily. Mr. Speaker, the Tamale, the first of its kind in the northern part of Ghana, has been completed. The Pokwasi interchange has been completed. The Obute interchange is nearing completion. Works on the main Swami interchange would soon. Phase 1 of the interchange of the Tema end of the motorway has been completed and Phase 2 has commenced in earnest. Mr. Speaker, the Integrated Iron and Steel Development Authority has come to upscale the country's industrialization efforts. The integrated bauxite and aluminum industry would soon witness a quantum leap. The Pwalugu Dam and irrigation system will soon translate onto the plains of Talensi and the adjoining districts to give life to lives. The assembly plants of 2 automobile companies, Volkswagen and Toyota, are on stream. 2 others, Renault and Sinotruk, are soon to be operationalized. The security forces are being provided with the necessary equipment, including patrol vehicles, armored vehicles, helicopters, night vision equipment, logistics and accommodation, to motivation to ensure internal security, dealing with crime, and defend the country and her citizens if and when the need arises. Mr. Speaker, this is the state of the nation today. Mr. Speaker, Parliament, our Parliament, has had most resources allocated to it by this government than any other government since this 4th Republic. That is the state of the nation. That is the state of the nation. Mr. Speaker, the government has implemented successfully an education system. This government has implemented the Zongo Development Fund to respond to the needs of Zongo and inner city communities. The Speaker has increased the number of public libraries by about 90% over the past 6 years. The Speaker, Akufo-Addo's government has increased the population with access to toilet facilities from the 33% to 59%, almost 60%. That's close to a doubling of what we met. We have increased access to electricity to close to 20%. Mr. Speaker, government has constructed more kilometrage of railway line than any other government since independence. Any other government since independence. Kilometrage of rail lines since independence. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, all that we from the colonial administration. That's why I said since independence. If you listen to me carefully, you are now nodding your head. Mr. Speaker, the current NPP government has successfully introduced and implemented the digital address system. We are innovatively implementing a paperless system, the clearing of goods at the ports and harbors, thereby enhancing revenue collection at the entry points. Mr. This indeed is the state of our nation. These very few examples out of thousands of programs and projects bear eloquent testimony about the accomplishment of the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo administration. The nation on the face of these would not be deceived by fancy talkers. The nation on the face of these would not be deceived by fancy talkers. One must own up to the fact, however, that there is some darkness now. But there is light at the end of the tunnel if we hold together. and not become unnecessarily partisan. The people of the church will come together when the need requires of us to come together to build this country out. There are one people in one country with a common destiny. Mr. Speaker, I thank you very much for your indulgence.
Honorable members, I think you've had a very good debate. This year's debate, members were not interjected. We had free debate, and I think everybody has enjoyed. So the rules that were set up by the leaders, I think, has worked. So, addition of the debate, the question is as many
Mr. Speaker, respectfully, at the end of the debate, what we do is, on behalf of the House, congratulate the President for delivering the message on the state of the nation. This is not the issues where a question is put. Respectfully.
Yeah, leader, I think appropriately we will convey a letter of gratitude to the President, His Excellency the President. But this well, honourable members, we've brought the debate to a closure. The House will convey a message to His Excellency the President that the hands of the Right Honourable Speaker. So, honourable members, leaders, any indication?
Mr. Speaker, respectfully, if you permit me to present the papers listed on the order paper. And then there is also an addendum, just the presentation paper, and then we'll then take an adjournment. But I recognize that my colleagues may have to travel to their constituencies to do the needful. So, Mr. Speaker, if we go to the original order paper, page 5, if I may start with page 5.
Yes, honorable members. Let me respectfully invite you to page 5, item listed 8, presentation of papers by the majority leader.
Budget performance report in respect of the Electoral Commission of Ghana for the period to December 2022. Proposed formula for distributing the District Assembly's Common Fund for the year 2023. Proposed formula for distribution of the Ghana Education Trust Fund for the year 2023. Proposed formula for the disbursement of the National Health Insurance Fund for the year 2023.
The first paper has been duly presented. It is referred to the Budget Committee for consideration and report. The second paper was duly presented. It is referred to the Committee of the Whole for consideration and report. Very well, honorable members, the other three, all of them are duly presented. They are referred to the Committee of the Whole for consideration and report. Yes, leadership.
Speaker, so we look at the addendum order paper. Page 2 of the addendum order paper. And that's item 2.
Let me invite you to the addendum paper, page 2, item listed 2, presentation of papers. Yes, by the finance.
Mr. Speaker, subject to your indulgence and that of my colleagues, I want to do the presentation on behalf of the Finance Minister.
Leader, leave granted.
Ratification to use the proceeds for 2 selected roads projects under the loan facility agreement between the Government of the Republic of Ghana, represented by the Ministry of Finance, and African Export-Import Bank, for an amount of 750 million United States dollars to finance capital and growth-related expenditures in the 2022 budget. That is 75 million allocated for the construction of the Ejisu-Konogo Road project to be reallocated for the construction of the Swami Interchange, and 98 million for the construction of the Enchikrom Adosu Road project to be reallocated for the construction of the bypasses on the Accra-Kumasi route.
Honourable members, the report has been duly presented. It is referred to the Finance Committee for consideration and report.
Mr. Speaker, respectfully, if you may add the leadership of the Roads and Transport Committee.
Very well.
Yes.
So, honourable members, the leadership of Roads.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to differ because, Mr. Speaker, this is a loan agreement that's already been approved by the House. The loan agreement came with an indicative use of proceeds. It is not the financing, the works agreement that we are going to vary. Loan agreement itself, in the document, there's an indicative use of proceeds, and they are varying the indicative use of proceeds to protect the project. I do not believe that we would need the road committee to be part of it. I think it's more of finance committee matter. Finance committee, they're only modifying the use of proceeds, not even the terms of the loan. It's a modification. But if you insist, Mr. Speaker, I'm of the view that finance committee can do this job appropriately.
Yes, leader.
Mr. Speaker, as the minority leader has stated, really, in the aphorism, we gave ourselves some broad indications as to the application. And so, referring this to the committee, they will then advise. In fact, this is for the avoidance of doubt situation. So they will just come and advise the House that this can be done and so on. And also to protect Parliament, not to protect me, to protect Parliament. That so. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, somebody said that we should add the Energy Committee. Mr. Speaker, in the world, everywhere in the world, when you do roads and maybe you have to provide illumination, it is considered as part of the road infrastructure. Speak to the mic. Speak to the mic. So that is what it is. So the referral to the Finance Committee, and just to cover our backs, just the leadership of the Rules and Transport Committee. I thank you.
Very well. So the report, as I said, has already been presented. It is referred to the Finance Committee, and we are asking that the leadership of the Rules Committee joins them to consider the report.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry. I should have done something else on page 6 of the original paper. I think because it was on the other side of the paper, of the leaflet, I forgot. Page 6, on behalf of the Finance Minister, to present those listed, those papers listed. B, Roman number 1, Roman number 2, and Roman number 3. And then you do the referral to the Finance Committee.
Very well.
Request for waiver of customs duties, VAT, import NHRL, get fund levy, EXIM levy, special import levy, and domestic VAT amounting to the Ghana cedi equivalent of 4,954,587 United States dollars, 88 cents, made up of 4,624,731 United States dollars on imports and 329,856 United States dollars, 88 cents on local purchases on materials, goods, and required to be procured for the construction of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration Office Annex buildings. Request for waiver of import duty, import NHIL, import get fund levy, import VAT, AU levy, ECOWAS levy, and inspection fees amounting to the Ghana cedi equivalent of 99,207,119 euros, 45 cents, made up of 64,655,350 euros, 52 cents for Global Fund and Gavi Alliance, and 34,550,708 euros, 93 cents for other development partners to the Ministry of Health for medical supplies, including vaccines, medicines, equipment, and vehicles to support the health sector for the period 2021 to 2023. Request for waiver for import duties, import NHIL, import get fund levy, import VAT, EXIM levy, special import levy, import COVID-19 levy, domestic VAT, domestic NHIL, domestic get fund levy, and domestic COVID-19 levy amounting to the Ghana cedi equivalent of 4,904,000 United States dollars, 75 cents, made up of 4,454,392 United States dollars and imports and 449,116 United States dollars, 75 cents on local purchases on equipment, materials, goods, and services to be procured for the improvement of Tema Motorway Roundabout Phase 2 project.
Honourable members, the reports the reports I have been duly presented They are referred to the Finance Committee for consideration and report. Honourable members, let's turn to item 7. Item 7 in today's order paper statement. I have admitted one statement, which is a tribute in memory of the late former member of this House, Mr. Nyamadonko, by Honourable Member for New Jabe North. Honourable, the floor is yours. You may read your tribute now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to pay tribute in memory of the late Honourable Dr. Samuel Nyamadonko, former Member of Parliament who represented the people of the New Jabe North constituency in the first Parliament of the Fourth Republic from 7th January 1993 to 6th January 1997 on the ticket of the National Convention Party. He had a distinguished long public service in Ghana beyond representing the New Jabe North constituency in Parliament. Mr. Speaker, he was appointed Deputy Minister in the first NDC administration in 1996 and later became a substantive minister of 1998. In 1999, he was appointed Regional Minister for Ashanti, position he held until January 2001 when the National Democratic Congress handed over government to the New Patriotic Party. In March 2014, he was appointed the Managing Director of the Intercity State Transport Company Limited, a position he held from 2014 to 2017. Prior to the advent of constitutional rule in this country, between 1982 and 1992, served as Deputy Regional Coordinator for People's Defense Committees and Workers' Defense Committees in the Eastern. As a Member of Parliament, he was the Deputy Minority Leader and was very active in committee work. He served as the Chairman of the Select Committee on Food, Agriculture and Cocoa Affairs. He was also a member of the following committees: Trade, Industry and Tourism, Roads and Highways, Environment, Science and Technology, Local and Rural Development, and then Public Account. He was passionate when matters relating to agriculture came to be discussed in Parliament, always looking for ways to improve upon productivity in the sector. Supporting a motion on 14th March 1995, he stated, and with your permission, Mr. Speaker, I quote, "Mr. Speaker, I should like to speak out of the motion and would also like to take advantage of the presence of the Minister to drive this point. Agriculture, no doubt, is the mainstay of our economy, and therefore the role of agriculture in the socio-economic development of the country cannot be overemphasized. Some honourable members have talked about it to ensure that agricultural extension officers are taken care of to guarantee success in the sector. However, I would like to state here that there must be a medium through which the work of the extension officers will be assessed, because the extensions have a duty of assisting our farmers in terms of technical knowledge with a view to increase production in the area of subsistence farming. If we do not have means of assessing the performance of these officers, no matter the inputs that we give them, we will not be able to make the necessary impacts on their performance, unquote." Mr. Speaker, this statement I submit is still relevant today if extension services can make the right impact on productivity in the sector. As a Member of Parliament for the New North constituency, he had dedicated himself to the development aspirations of the people, particularly in the health, education, and agriculture sectors. The health facility at Asokore stands today to his eternal credit. He saw a good number of young men and women to pursue further education, both home and abroad, many of whom are now gainfully employed and contributing to economic development of the country. Late Honorable Dr. Samuel Nyamadonko had a knack for resolving problems. He was intelligent and witty, and these are traits he had inherited from his late father, the Jaswohine of Asokore in the New Japan traditional area. These traits of his were recognized, resulting in him being appointed in 1999 to serve as the regional minister for Ashanti region. With his diverse socio-cultural and political dynamics, he excelled in this position to the admiration of all in their political persuasions. Again, as the managing director in the Intercity State Transport Company Limited, a sterling leadership resulted in the transformation of the STC into a service-oriented and customer-friendly enterprise, rebranded to play a critical role in the transportation sector of the economy. No wonder the present administration of STC had cause to honor him after he had left the organization. One remarkable thing one can say about the late Honorable Dr. Samuel Nyamadonko was his humility in public life and in all his endeavors. Mr. Speaker, we can all learn from him. As we pay tribute in memory of our former member, minister, colleague, compatriot, brother, and friend, we extend our deepest condolences to the bereaved family, the wife and children, and to the people of the New Japan North constituency. May the soul of the late Honorable Dr. Samuel Nyamadonko rest in perfect peace. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity.
Very well. So, Honorable Nyamadonko, let's hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to eulogize this cadre, journalist, patriot, minister, and statesman. Mr. Speaker, the late Nyamadonko was a deputy regional coordinator of People's Defense Committees and Workers' Defense Committees of the Eastern Region. Mr. Speaker, he was also the municipal chief executive for New Japan. He also rose to become deputy regional minister. Through that route, he also became the regional minister for Ashanti, became a cabinet minister, minister for health. And indeed, if you talk to professionals of the Ministry of Health, they will mention him, they will mention the late Major Salome, they will mention the late Major Kweshiga of health this country has had. Nyamadonko was also a cultural icon. Indeed, any time we were a historical minister in Ashanti, anytime we went to a palace, he would start his delivery with a proverb. He was so good, and he brought our trade into life through the use of proverbs. Apparently, he lived within a palace, and so well versed with the Akan culture and Akan society. Honorable Nyamadonko's one of his major attributes is his humility. Honorable Amadonko will talk to the Kayaye on the streets of Kumasi with such respect, and he will extend the same respect to the Asantehene. He was somebody who believed that irrespective of your status in life, you were worth respecting. The late Nyamadonko, who most people thought was my brother, could build bridges between almost all the divides we had in our society. He was one person who was extremely popular in Kumasi Zongo, within the Zongo communities, and yet was seen as an Ashanti royal, again in Ashanti. During the NDC and MPP in Ashanti, he moved seamlessly between the two political divides, especially when it came to problem solving. Even though he was originally from the eastern region, but as a result of the divide between Eastern and Ashanti, he was accepted as a royal in both regions. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Nyamadonko, as Minister of Health, would take a bottle of whiskey in the evening, go to the dean of the school, go to a professor of Kolebu, go and sit down and have a chat in order to hear the other side of health policy from practitioners. He had that character. For young politicians coming up, Honorable Nyamadonko is one person I'll recommend to young politicians to study his background, his approach to politics, his lifestyle, and emulate. We have lost a patriot, we have lost a nationalist, we have lost a unifier, a bridge builder. May his soul rest in perfect peace. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Let him come to Honorable First Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are not many days that I speak about people in this, because indeed, Honorable Nyamadonko left this Parliament before I joined Parliament. And the Speaker, I've known him in my young days when I started law practice in Koforidua. At that time, Honorable Nyamadonko was a PDC or CDR coordinator operating on a motorbike. We used to meet at the Fijuase. We became friends by accident because somebody ran into his motorbike and the person had me as a lawyer, Abraham & Co. in Koforidua. In the course of discussion, we generally clicked because of what I observed about him. Down to earth by nature, very humble in character, very accommodating. Of course, at that time, very active pro-NPP, even though we had not started, or should I say, very avid anti-PNDC, engaging with a CDR person. It was supposed to be confrontational, but we each accommodated each other so well, and from that time we became friends. I recall most of the times in 1992, when the campaigns were going on, we would meet, and I was then driving my small Vida Vijeta. We stopped by the roadside and we argue and argue and argue, but in the end we would leave smiling at each other. In fact, I would say that from the conversations I had after he left the Ministry of Health, it was very clear that what made him stand out and what made the doctors and others remember him most was his humility and his level of affection. Nurses and doctors across board would always cite that as an example of a person who they could readily work with. When he became Ashanti Regional Minister, something happened which I still remember. At that time, Tafo, Kumase Tafo, was part of the majority leaders constituency. As the Ashanti Regional Minister, he observed that one of the best planned communities in Kumase is Tafo. All the houses were built in row, but the lanes that are reserved for vehicle movement have been covered in kiosks. He successfully engaged the landlords and the house owners to remove their kiosks, explaining to them the danger of reaching their house, not being able to houses in case of fire and emergency agencies like the fire service, like National Ambulance, and so on. And indeed, that was very successfully executed by the landlords themselves when he personally engaged them and explained to them why it is necessary to keep the lanes. Now, in my view, since he left Kumasi, he's been operating. I met him while he was still MD of STC, but not much about him. He continued to be the honorable and accommodating gentleman I knew him to be. May the soul of our friend, Honorable Nyamadonko, rest in perfect peace. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Kofi, I'm taking for the last person that I come to leadership. Yes, Honorable Member.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to say some few words about Samuel Nyama Donko, someone I could describe as a brother, because we work so closely with our late former president, His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings. But even before, Mr. Speaker, I get to the days of our working with former presidents in these last few days before his passing, as a member of parliament during that time, because of the numbers of the minority, there were few that many of them would have to pick a lot of responsibilities. And he was one such person who was very available to play a number of roles. As deputy minority leader, at a point, he became even the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee. It was his period as the Minister for Health, before then deputy, that we saw the eradication of guinea worm from our country. And that was one disease that was devastating a lot of the rural communities. He, together with his boss, and the then President, His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings, saw to it that guinea worm was completely eradicated. Mr. Speaker, when he was promoted to the position of a full health minister, a number of strikes were happening because our health professionals were complaining of being overworked. He met with them and introduced the additional hour allowances that helped in one way or the other to solve this striking situation that the health institutions were confronted with. Mr. Speaker, he didn't end there. We all know that Ashanti region was more of a stronghold of the main opposition as it was then. When Nyama Donko became the minister for Ashanti region, he managed to quell a lot of situations that other persons maybe would have supervised and turned it into something else. This was because of his calm nature, his style, his approach, that you hardly will get offended with Nyama Donko standing before you. The way he will approach you, the way he will handle the situation, no matter who you are and how angry you are, you will surely will come under and listen to him. Mr. Speaker, STC was one institution that was faced with a lot of challenges. Having been appointed as MD, he sought to improve STC. Today, if we celebrate STC, if we think that it has come back to life and it has some roots, it was Nyama Donko. He did so much to end with internal resources. He managed to secure a number of buses, and most of those buses are still on the road today, generating income for the SDC. Mr. Speaker, a lot of friends of Jerry Rawlings at a point had difficulty dealing with him and being around at the same time being in government. But Nyama Donko was not to be one of such persons. He found time to associate with Jerry Rawlings anytime his services were needed. All our activities, you'll find Nyama Donko there. And it was surprising that when he passed, the most common picture find of him with any senior officer on our side was President Rawlings, even as a former president. So, Speaker, I'm happy to be here today, at least to be able to add my voice to eulogize this of ours, this great colleague of ours, and this great brother that I will call of mine. I say that his soul should rest in perfect peace. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Very well. Yes. Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me thank the Maker of the State for a very, for a good tribute to our late Honorable Nyama Donko. Mr. Speaker, who had a very long public service. In all the areas that he served, he excelled. Mr. Speaker, whether he was a member of Parliament in the state, has been stated, his dedication and the focus in areas of health, agriculture, and others to transform his community as a Minister of Health. His record at the ministry is really clear on the things he focused on. Ministry of Ashanti Regional Minister, a lot of the good things we've heard. I personally met him as a minister, and he gave me very good advice on a few occasions. A very kind man. Mr. Speaker, his record at the STC has been attested to, and clearly, when he went to STC, his focus was to make sure that the institution would stand the test of time. And he left a legacy that everybody spoke about. I think as we pay tribute to Honorable Nyama Donko, I think the question that we all have to ask is that when we die, what will be said about us? The good things you do, as it has been said, good things that men do live after them. And I think today, the good things that the Honorable Nyama Donko did is really the things that we are all remembering. And we really, this day, thank him for his dedicated public service to Ghana. We mourn with the family, and we pray that God will give him a good rest. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, let me come to leader.
Mr. Speaker, I also rise to report the statement which has been made to eulogize the Honorable Samuel Nyama Donko. Speaker, I associate myself with the very words that have been used by all and sundry to describe Honorable Nyama Donko, a man who was humble to the core. Speaker, in government, he was moved from one place to the other. First starting as a chief whip for the minority, becoming minority leader, and then being assigned a role as a deputy minister, then substantive minister for health, and then going to the Ashanti region as a minister of state, indeed regional minister for Ashanti region, which was supposed to be a hotbed for the then NDC. That indeed was a man who possessed considerable versatility. Speaker, the Honorable Nyoma Donko, as has been said, was a very down-to-earth personality who associated with all and sundry. Speaker, one could decipher he was sent to Kumasi from the Ministry of Health on purpose, and the purpose was to still the rampaging war in Kumasi. Here we had some group of persons managing the affairs of the NDI who believed in strong arm tactics, and all the language that they used, all they understood was to use force on people who they thought disagreed with them. Don't forget, a very honorable member of this House, the Honorable Unfreda Nani, had gone to KMA to request about his own common funds, the use of his common funds. And attacks were unleashed on the Member of Parliament within the presence of KMA. He was assaulted and stamped on profusely, right at, all because the people at the helm of affairs at the time, at the regional level and at the metropolitan level, believed in the use of brute force. I think recognizing what was happening, Nyoma Donko then was posted to Ashanti region. And lo and behold, his own attitude, his demeanor, and the fact that he was always engaging to find common ground was what indeed yielded some dividends for the NDC. My own constituency, Swami, was the epicenter of machoism. And here we had a group of macho gang who could be unleashed on police stations and assault policemen for free. And the police were afraid of them. On one occasion, when people were attending the of MPP, barriers had been erected at Swami. And people were pulling out all who were wearing MPP t-shirts. The Swami police went to intervene. In the process, one of the guys ran to the Swami police station. They went to the police station and vandalized the police station. And Kumasi police could not arrest them. They were using a Nissan pickup, which had been procured from Ghana Water Company at the time, and a Hyundai bus. And in those vehicles, they openly wielded AK-47s, given to them by the powers that were at the time. And they would park in front of the residence of the chief imam of Swami, who now has become the Ashanti Regional Chief Imam. And the ammunition were in the vehicle for all who cared to know and see. Nyoma Donko came and changed the contours of political administration in Ashanti. The Speaker, the Honorable First Deputy Speaker, as to what he did at Tafo when he engaged the chief and the landlords and the Congo chief, and all of them came to the determination that Tafo should go back to the strict grid system that had been constructed Tafo Township. So all attachment constructions and kiosks that have been put to obstruct and indeed impede the movement of pedestrians and vehicles were removed and demolished. That paved the way for Tafo then to regenerate itself. Mr. Speaker, from Tafo, the next port of call was going to be Bremen. After the elections, when the NDC lost, that was the end. And Bremen has become worse off. Today, you can't move from one end to the other. And Nyoma Donko has made thoroughfares at Tafo. That is his legacy. Speaker, I believe if he had lived on longer, to have been in charge of the region, things would have changed for the better. Now, Shanti, the regional ministers, including regional secretaries, PNDC and DC, who were posted there since 1982, the two people who stand out are Nyoma Donko and Kojo. There are two people who relate to people who didn't believe in the use of brute force. They believe in brain power. Let's sit down and talk. Mr. Speaker, I had a very close encounter with him in the conduct of presidential and general elections in December 2020, when there was an allegation that somebody had thumb-printed some ballots on a smuggling way. We had all gone there, and a lady photojournalist was snapping pictures, and she was descended on by some army officers. And the lady was assaulted. I had gone to plead with the soldiers to leave the lady alone. And the lead person descended on me and hit me on the head several times with the butt of his gun. That man happened to be one Sergeant Alasan, who is the driver of then General Njido. Nyoma Donko apparently heard when I was bleeding profusely at the Tafo police station to lodge a complaint. They had written my statement, just about to move from there to Confanochi. She came to the police station, saw me, and more or less lifted me, put me in his vehicle, and asked one of them to drive me. I come in the company of General Anyedeho himself and another person. But General Anyedeho didn't utter one word. Nyoma Donko, it was who pleaded with me. Took me to the emergency center of Confanochi and had stitches administered my head. He drove me to my house and asked me to rest. A rather traumatizing experience. At exactly 5 o'clock, he came back. He said, "No, you're a politician. You're contesting. You want to observe the collation of the results." So he drove me to Wesley College. I had a police station there. Took me to some 2 other police stations to monitor, seeing my condition. After those events, and after the event, he got Monaco to purchase a young lady another camera. That was the man. That was the kind of person that Ghana needs in governance. People who believe in brute force. Mr. Speaker, he invited me on a couple of occasions to his house. Unfortunately, I could not avail time to be with him. It was the reason why, when I learned of his transition, I was shell-shocked and so traumatized. And I went to the president to inform him. The president himself knew him and said, no, this is a man that I can say was indeed a good man. So the state will do whatever it takes to assist the funeral, the family, give him a befitting burial. Speaker, and the president himself has been very much involved in the organization of the funeral. Unfortunately, there were some difficulties among his family members. But I got myself, they invited me, and I had to send my dispatch rider to Kofurudua to deliver a letter to them. But it was pointless fighting after the man had died. Eventually, we were able to get them together. And that is what is paving the way for the organization of the funeral tomorrow. Speaker, Shakespeare, it was who said, who wrote that food is oft interred in the bones. Today, the converse is what we are hearing. The good of Sam Donko would not be interred with his bones. And they will speak for him as I'm speaking for him in this house. On this occasion, we pray to God that he gives him eternal rest, and that the departure of the Honorable Sam Donko, a peacemaker, will bring peace in his family. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, shall we rise and give him 1 minute of silence? May the soul of Honorable Samuel Nyamba Donko and all the faint-hearted rest in perfect peace. Amen. Leader, are we adjourning?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we must adjourn. The Attorney General is here to respond to questions that have been filed. But I've indicated to him that how far we have to adjourn. And then maybe program for next week. Mr. Speaker, but he indicates to me that he's also traveling out next week. So perhaps we may have to take it into the following week for him to come and respond to those questions.
Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we have to adjourn on the 31st. That is when we adjourn. So it will mean that it will be after the next succeeding week that we may have to program him out.
Anyway, incidentally, all the owners of this, apart from Dr. Kwabra Donko, all of them are not even here.
Just because all of them delegated me to ask their question.
You don't have the attorney of anybody. So, honorable members, we will accordingly adjourn the House to Tuesday, the 21st of March, 2023. Tuesday, the 21st of March, 2023, at 10 o'clock in the forenoon. Before I adjourn, let me use this opportunity to thank all of you, especially the leadership, for your cooperation. For the entire week, even before the weekend, from last Thursday when my bosses left me alone. You've cooperated with me, and I believe you've had one of the best debates. So I'm so grateful and I'm very appreciative. On that note, the House stands adjourned to Tuesday, the 21st of March, 2023 at 10 o'clock in the forenoon. The House stands adjourned.